Hey everyone, Carrie Beck here with Homeschool Coffee Break, where we help you stop the overwhelm so you can take a coffee break. We are talking today, actually, this week when this episode publishes, it is the week that here in America, the United States, we celebrate our independence, our freedom. And so I thought it was very appropriate that we stop for a moment and talk about freedom in our homeschool, celebrating the freedoms that we have and the type of freedom we want our kids to respect and enjoy. And so we're going to just sort of dive into topics about freedom in homeschooling. Um, the cool thing is you are freed from the system. Freedom allows you to do what your family feels is most important and what is best for them. So we are going to talk about how that freedom you can take and raise your kids to think, to lead, to love, to learn. What does homeschool freedom mean? And leave something, if you're listening to this where there's a chat, leave something, a comment. Tell me, what does homeschool freedom mean to you? You're not tied down to state testing schedules. You may have to do some testing, but it's in your schedule. You're not tied down to rigid curriculum requirements. I know that you have to sometimes submit hours or subjects, but you still have some freedom in how you get to that point, or even super long school days. I mean, some kids, I see them getting up for the bus and it is dark outside, and I don't know, they don't get home till maybe 5 o'clock. Instead of all of that, you have the freedom to follow your child's interest and the pace of where they are learning. You have the freedom to center your learning around your family values. What's important to you? What do you value? And for me, y'all know that faith is huge to me. So we could have the freedom, no matter what we were studying, we could look at it through the lens of the Bible. That even included math. Some people are like, no, yes, you can still look at math. There's a lot of design, there's order, there's a lot in math that shows us who our great creator is. But we can also look at history and literature and music and all of that through the lens of the Bible. Those are the freedoms we have. But what happens? That's not, we don't take advantage of them. A lot of times we feel like we just hop back on that little conveyor belt, just like the school system, and we're trying to keep up with the school system. Irony in this is you left the school system for a reason. Why did you leave? Why did you choose to homeschool? Whatever that reason is, you need to line up your day and the way that you approach homeschooling with what that reason is, and don't follow that system. You may wake up and do Bible around the breakfast table. We did it right here at this table. Your kids may bake some cookies and learn fractions. You may head to the living room like we did and do our read aloud. That's where we did a lot of learning with literature and with history. We did poetry. We did all sorts of things in there. So you have that freedom. Are you taking advantage of it? Now, freedom does not mean chaos. It does not mean just doing nothing. I'm free to just sit around and do nothing. It means that you are very intentional with what matters most to you. So ask yourself, what do I really want my kids to know and love by the time they graduate? I had someone give this illustration. Draw a picture of a kid, just the outline of a person on a piece of paper, and inside write the things that you want your kids to either be or to know. I want them to be kind and patient and full of grace. I want them to know who God is. I may want them to understand what history is, whatever it is that's important to you. That is what you need to do. For us, that was a love for God, but also, so we built relationships vertically, but we also built relationships with each other. So I wanted them to be able to interact well, to think independently, to think critically, to build character and virtue. And I wanted them to have a hunger beyond a lesson plan, beyond just me telling them what to do. I wanted them to take ownership in their own education. And we have the freedom for them to do that. It wasn't just about raising followers, it was about raising leaders. And we could shape our kids' hearts through homeschooling, not just check off the boxes. There's a book called A Thomas Jefferson Education, and it suggests that leadership education is liberating education. It frees the student from the teacher. Think about that. I'm going to read a quote from 1909. We want, this is said here in the United States. We want, and some of y'all have heard this because I share this in one of my master classes. We want one class of persons to have a liberal education. We're talking students in 1909. We want another class, a very much larger class of necessity, to forgo the privilege of a liberal education and fit themselves to specific, difficult manual tasks. You see, back in 1909, a liberal education was valued. It was a privilege, and they only wanted a small number of kids to get that. We wanted a whole bunch of others to just be workers because they needed workers. And that's all they want. And if they just needed workers, they needed kids that didn't really think. They just did what they were told. And that was from 1909, I would say, till about the 50s and 60s. And then that's really when it set in. And started raising kids that all they did was do what they're told to do, even in high school. Who said this? Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States. Not at the time, but he became President of the United States. You see, a liberal education is liberating your kids from the teacher, liberating, freeing them from the teacher so that when they have that education and they go off after they've graduated, they have the tools of learning. They have a love of learning. They know how to think well. They know how to make wise decisions. So you don't want to create kids that just do whatever they're told to do. I wanted my kids to be able to think critically. So the tools of learning can include reading deeply, asking great questions, discussing ideas, learning how to write and communicate well. That's really what education is all about. And if they can do that, they are set for life. And the cool thing is, we have the freedom to do this. We don't have to check off all the boxes. You have freedom in your homeschool. Even if you have to clock in and say you homeschooled a certain number of days or you covered these subjects, you still have the freedom on how that is all done. So some practical ways that you can embrace this educational freedom is number one, ditch the busy work. Like, get rid of it. Choose meaningful activities that will nurture your kids' mind and heart. And this includes reading, writing, discussing. That is what's going to do it. And listening. We need to listen to our kids. Your kids need to listen to each other. That is a very important skill. So ditch the busy work. It's not really doing anything except wasting time. Let your kids go deep. If they are truly fascinated by something, give them time to explore it fully. Last week's podcast was on nature walks, and it was a chance for kids, whatever they're fascinated with on that walk, they can dig deep in that. If you have a high schooler that is into motorcycles, let them study motorcycles for a few months. They're going to cover reading and they can cover writing and math and science and history and all sorts of things. But let them go deep into whatever it is they want to study. My girls, when in high school, they were interested in astronomy. So they ended up taking an astronomy course and going out to this guy's farm and looking at the stars. And he pointed out all sorts of things there. That's what they were interested in. We dove deep in there. Create space for discussion. And the number one best place to do that is at the dinner table. You know, the dinner table, there are studies that show kids that eat dinner with their family score better academically. And I think that is really true. If you're not eating a meal together every day, just go find one meal that you can eat together. That alone can do so much. But at the dinner table, it's not like we have to have a formal discussion about a book. We can talk about current events. We can talk about what they're reading in the Bible or the verse that we're memorizing. For our family, we were sports lovers. We had many discussions over sports and who the best team was and everything. I remember sitting here in this room at this table, and Ashley brought her now husband Jesse home. I think it was the first or second time we had met. It was probably the first time he had come for dinner. And he was a Red Sox fan, and her sister, Gentry, was a New York Yankee Yankees fan, and she just let him have it. And I was just like thinking, Gentry, cool down. But you know what? We had so much safety at this table that you could say things and disagree respectfully, and that she felt safe to be able to do that. And luckily, Jesse's the kind of person that likes to argue anyway. So, if you say black, he's going to argue white. But that was just what happened at our dinner table. We could go back and forth with what was important to us and what our feelings were and give an argument for why that was. So, create space for discussions, inspire with stories of leaders, other good leaders. If you come to Homeschool Superheroes Week this year, it's in a couple months in August. I'll leave a link to where you can sign up. But if you come there every day, we have a kickoff, and I share a superhero of the faith, not in the Bible, but someone who has walked the faith after the New Testament. And some of them are in ancient Rome. Some of them are in modern times. Some of them are during the Reformation. And there's all sorts of times. And you will those are great stories to be able to share with your children, great Christian leaders. You could look at some of the American leaders like George Washington or Harriet Tubman, taking that freedom train, freedom again, back and forth from the South to the North. Look at missionaries, current missionaries, and just see what kind of leaders they are. And then finally, so we ditch the busy work, let kids go deep, create space for discussion, inspire with stories of leaders, and then make time for rest. Like, you don't have to hustle, you have freedom. Just like we're celebrating on July 4th. You don't have to hustle all the time. Rest and relax. Take a break. You don't need to be go, go, go. And I think kids need free time, elementary to high school, where they're not always involved in an activity. Boredom is the beginning of creativity. Let your kids be bored. Let them rest. We all need breaks from the rigidity of whatever it is you do during the day. So, just like our nation's independence came with sacrifice and vision, your homeschool freedom is also a gift. Use it well. And one thing you could do this week is teach your kids why we have freedom, both as Americans and the that fought for our freedom here in the United States, but also as Christians. We have freedom that you look in history and not everyone, even today, there is the persecuted church. And not last week, we talked about the persecuted church. 2 weeks ago, we talked about nature walks. So not everyone has the freedom that you and I have. And so we need to teach them about that and be able to respect it and appreciate it. Don't waste your time replicating a system that you chose to walk away with, a system that really doesn't educate, a system that doesn't really work. And let this July 4th be a time to remind you to raise your kids to be free, free to grow, free to lead, free to walk in truth. Think about what freedom means in so many areas of your life. So my challenge would be to talk to your kids about why we have freedom, but also talk to them this week about the connection between freedom and responsibility. Think about that. We're not going to go into that, but freedom and responsibility, both in history and in your homeschool as well. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do that so we can get this out to more and more people. So, happy Independence Day. I'm Carrie Beck with Homeschool Coffee Break. We'll talk to you next time.